Commissioner Trinkle. I got it. All right. I know Julie. Brian a moment to settle. Call this meeting to order. Can we have the roll call?
Commissioner Chan?
Here.
Commissioner Kent? Here. Commissioner Martin?
Here.
Commissioner Trinkle?
Here.
And Commissioner Chang Frank will be absent, and Commissioner Sardinas may join us virtually in a minute, but right now she is absent.
And Chair Abbott is here.
And Chair Abbott is here.
All right, I will read the land acknowledgement. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of the Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. All right, very good. We can move to the minutes, approval of the minutes. One thing on the minutes was the approval of the previous minutes. We'll move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay.
Did I hear someone second? Yes? Okay, perfect. Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Trinkle?
Yes.
And Chair Abbott?
Yes. All right.
Sorry, I was checking to see
Very
if
good. Of course.
Commissioner Sardinas had logged on yet.
Right. All right. Time for public comment. This is an opportunity for folks viewing or attending the meeting to speak on items that are not on the agenda. If you have something you'd like to let us know about, now is your opportunity. You have 3 minutes. Just make yourself known.
No hands raised
No hands
online.
going up. All right. Going once, going twice, and moving on. Very good. So item 4.1, presentation of the street tree management plan. Take it away.
Yes.
Oh,
Interject real quick. I noticed usually we have our announcements. I don't have an announcement.
it's been moved. It's been moved to the.
I just wanted to make sure that was part of the plan. And that's like
I should have said something.
Okay.
We have moved. The agenda's been jumbled. I think for all
all the
bodies,
commissions, all advisory
commissions, it's
the announcements are at the end.
at the end. Okay. Very good. Good eye.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. Now, item 4.1.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Bond, the Community Development Director. I'm going to kick this off very briefly to first give you a quick update. We have been working on the street tree management plan now for over a year. You last received a briefing on the plan back in October, and we're glad to be back again to give you both a refresher on what we've covered so far and an overview of the work that we've done up to this point. And at this point, we're closing in on having a draft available for community review. Before putting that draft out, we wanted to give you this evening an overview of what we're planning to put in that draft to get your feedback and direction on some of those key points. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our consultant team with Bartlett Hort Science, Daria Barar, and Ryan Suttle.
Before you get started, I just want to announce that Commissioner Sardinas has just joined. Commissioner Sardinas, I believe you have a quick announcement to make. You have to unmute yourself. Hold on one.
Announcements have been moved, or is this something?
She just needs to announce the clause.
No, sorry. I'm unable to attend because of clause 2449 due to lack of childcare today. So I will be joining virtually, and apologies for being late.
Perfect. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
That was it. You may continue.
Thank you. And I'm going to start the screen share here with the presentation and then hand the keyboard over to our consultant team. There we go. All yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having us again tonight. We appreciate it. Like Jeff said, my name is Daria Barar. I'm Managing Consulting Urban Forester with Fort Science, and I'm here tonight with Ryan Settle, who's a consulting arborist and urban forester with Fort Science Bartlett Consulting. And as Jeff mentioned, we have been lucky enough to be working with city staff on the urban and community forestry street tree management plan. And we're here tonight to give a brief update on what we've talked about at past commission meetings, and then kind of give you a sense for what we're putting in the rest of the document. So far, we are going to talk, I did want to mention that we've talked before about chapters 1 through 4, and we will go over those again tonight. And Chapter 6 goes over sort of the strategy and community action plan. And we have a matrix to present tonight. Chapter 5 covers the community perspectives. That chapter will remain kind of incomplete until the document is at a more complete phase, just so that we cover all of the events and items that we attend and opportunities to communicate with the public. So in chapters 1 through 4, we have an introduction and context, how the document relates to other city documents, urban forestry assessment, and sort of the current management and protections for trees in street trees in Albany. So quite a long time ago, I think fall of last year, we had a working meeting, or may actually have been summer of last year. We had a working meeting and produced a vision statement, a mission statement, and a goal statement. I'll give you guys just a quick moment to briefly read over that. And there will be time, we'll put this in the presentation, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to revise to relook at the vision, mission, and finally the goal statement that we all came up with. Really great conversation that evening. So chapter 1 covers why we should care about an urban forest, what ecosystem benefits are provided, just sort of generally. This is an umbrella sort of introduction to the document, and why street trees are important, why managing them is a really big piece of what a city does. The goal of this is really to understand the tree resource so that we can better manage it. Chapter 2 talks a lot about the 14 different neighborhoods that make up the city of Albany, which, as you know, is largely developed residential properties. And it connects this planning document with other planning documents within the city, specifically the general plan and the CAP. Chapter 3 does a pretty deep dive into a canopy analysis. So we took the existing inventory that the city has for trees in the right-of-way, and we analyzed that information by way of an inventory analysis and ecosystem services analysis. and that's covered in Chapter 3. In Chapter 4, we do a pretty deep dive into how trees are currently being managed in the city of Albany, both in terms of codes and laws and regulations that protect or don't protect city trees or trees in the right-of-way. We talk about the maintenance program and that it is a reactive maintenance model, which just give you a little refresher on what that means. It means that when there is some kind of failure or something that stimulates work to be done, that work is done on a reactive basis, and there's no sort of programmatic way of strategically going through the city and pruning trees at a certain time, blah, blah, blah. I guess reactive as opposed to proactive, which is the other strategy for pruning. And of course, we do a comparative benchmarking analysis of the urban forestry program with other programs in the Bay Area, with similarly sized cities or cities that are close in proximity to Albany. And I wanted to give you all an opportunity to ask some questions on what you guys have already heard about. Talk about any, I'm happy to answer questions on any of those topics.
Yes, open it up. Any commissioner questions on the first 4 chapters of the material that they just went over?
One question I had was, it says the city of Albany will strive to, for the mission, the city of Albany will strive to protect and grow. That sounds different from what we're doing now. So is that, we are planting trees, so in that sense we're growing. So is that in itself saying what that the city will take a more active role in maintenance?
Hopefully. I think that's the goal of this document, is to help sort of set the stage for a more robust program.
Okay. Is that for me?
There's some look through here. So yeah, you want to talk about the first 4 chapters? Are there more chapters?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I don't see them in the.
So we've already talked about the first 4. This is just a little summary. If there's any questions about the vision and the goals.
I just wanted to give an opportunity before I turn it over to my colleague Ryan Settle. He's going to talk about Chapter 6 and what you guys looked at in your commission report this evening is a sort of a summary of the actions in Chapter 6, and he'll go into that in a moment. If you're ready for that, he'll start now. Cool. All right.
All right, thank you.
Great. Okay. Thanks for sticking with us to that. It's been a long time since we've been here, so we just wanted to kind of give everybody a refresh. So I'll be diving into Chapter 6. This, I know I speak for Daria and myself, we're excited to share today. This is really the meat of, so what? We spent a lot of time looking at what Albany has, talking with community members and groups about what folks want to see, and the goals that might shape the future of the urban forest, and this is what we have come up with for those goals, actions to meet them, and then some key points that are strategies to get there. I know this is super busy. I'll go through these individually later on. So here, the implementation actions here, these key items, ideally all of them will be pursued, but we do realize that there are budget, time, and staffing constraints. Not all of them are going to be able to be implemented right off the bat. These are kind of tools, and ostensibly as we go through, they can be performance indicators that can denote progress towards these overarching goals for the street tree population. And we intend this plan to be a living document that can be regularly revisited to evaluate progress against these suggested actions. So goal number 1, this echoes some of the language that we saw and just revisited in the vision statement. grow a healthy, extensive, vibrant, and diverse street tree population to provide 5% canopy cover by 2050. And I want to stress that's just trees along the streets. I know 5% canopy doesn't sound like a whole lot, but as we covered in the earlier chapters, right now street trees only provide about 4% canopy cover throughout the city. So that's a substantial increase from current levels. There are heavy limitations along streets in terms of just physical space for crowns and roots of trees to develop. Other utilities like streetlights, power lines that they have to compete with for space. So we have to keep in mind these limitations and set realistic goals that we're able to achieve with some devoted planning. To reach these goals, we want to prioritize species diversity, as we saw in the inventory that Albany already has. There's a good diversity, and we want to maintain that. We want to make sure that if anything that's improved, at the very least maintained into the future. Along those lines, we'd like to prioritize climate-adapted species. Some of this is already being done in testing out new species for Albany, but we need to make sure that trees that go in the ground now have time to develop into resources and are able to withstand projected climate change in the future. And we also want to maximize canopy based on the site. We can't plant trees like that are on Solano here everywhere in the city, but where possible, larger trees will bring more benefit to the surrounding communities, and we need to plant that where possible. How do we get there? So action number one, in terms of this Grow the Urban Forest overarching objective, is to develop a citywide street tree planting strategy to increase canopy cover overall and improve equity differences between neighborhoods. Where possible, there are physical constraints, such as limited space in the right-of-way, particularly in the western part of the city, that are going to limit some canopy gains on a neighborhood level, but we need to be aware of where opportunities exist and start with those areas. To reach this, right now, it looks like our recommendation will be to plant around 150 trees a year. This depends on a few other things that we're still working out with the city. But the good news is this isn't too far of an increase from what John is already doing now. He's doing a great job getting trees in the ground, and we want to encourage that and enable that to maybe increase into the future. This also entails defining a budget for the maintenance program for newly planted trees, for watering, young tree maintenance. And to track this goal, we recommend that the citywide and zone-specific tree canopy cover be remeasured every 10 years or so. And that's where we used the iTree canopy software in this past iteration. In 10 years, they might be more sophisticated tools available. So we'll have to use the technology available at the time. Action number two to get there, and we've already mentioned climate adapted a couple of times tonight, but plant climate adapted species with the intention of planting the right tree in the right place. That's kind of an industry adage. You can also think of this as an appropriate tree for the site in terms of thinking about maximizing benefits for public health, wildlife, and resilience. Resilience on a forest level, an individual tree level, and then the social level of the benefits that this tree can provide. So you need to match the tree geometry as well as the more biotic factors like water, soil quality, things like that. And we want to maintain the species and age diversity that the Albany urban forest is already pretty successful in. So what is climate adapted exactly? It's a tree species, broadly speaking, that will thrive now in Albany. You plant it in the ground, it has the potential to do well and develop into a mature tree. But it also has the potential to thrive in the projected future that the climate might be in Albany. And the main things that we think goes into this consideration are things like water use, the sunset hardiness zone is kind of a broad categorization of how northerly and southerly trees can grow. And the salt tolerance. As climate change progresses, it's likely that recycled water will be more commonly used, which has a higher salt tolerance. We want to make sure that we're planting trees that can tolerate that. So an example of this that has been popular in the Bay Area in recent years is the silverleaf oak. There are some great ones planted in Berkeley. which has a very similar climate to Albany. It's native to like southwest United States, northern Mexico. So it's kind of an assisted migration, if you want to think of it that way. But we want to kind of use this forward thinking, incorporate that into the plan in areas that we can. Along these lines, we looked at the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science to see what might be a good analog for Albany. And they selected Pomona as where this climate will likely be in around 60 years, So a way to try to find out what climate-adapted species might be good to select would be to see what, number one, grows in Pomona and Albany right now. And if you wanted to look at more experimental plantings, look at species that thrive in Pomona that maybe aren't used often in Albany right now or aren't used at all, and kind of go through and see which might be appropriate to try out and which aren't. These are other considerations we want to include in species selection. Diversity and resilience. Trees and wildlife also came up quite a bit in our engagement with community members and organizations. It's something that I feel really passionate about personally, bringing in kind of the more than human benefits of trees. So we want to make sure that things kind of that grow along this natural migration corridor are used in the north to south. Water use obviously is going to be paramount in the future. Human health impacts. Placemaking is also a very important part of Albany's urban forest. There are kind of landscape defining trees, and we want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind in any succession planning or new species to try out. And as we've already talked about, ecosystem service delivery, trees are good, and more trees, more benefits for the people. All right, we talked about the tree-focused objectives. How do we get there in management? Objective number 2 is to define responsibilities and support improved maintenance practices and protections of trees. Right now, as we've already talked about in several other meetings, there's a shared maintenance agreement, and it's led to some difficulties. So our recommended action is to codify a responsibility and set standards for proactive public tree maintenance and protection, which is quite a change from the current model of reactionary tree maintenance in Albany. The key points to get there are to codify the city's authority and responsibility for street tree maintenance, clarify definitions in the ordinance as well. So these proactive maintenance cycles could be 5-7 years based on inspections. You would go out and identify work that has to be done and schedule it in-house. This leads to lower unit costs over time, but it might have a higher cost at the beginning when this is being implemented, so we're still working that out, what that might look like. Along those lines, if the city has more control over these trees, we recommend revisiting the criteria for street tree removal to shift responsibility, especially for safety-related tree concerns, to the city arborist. The city can't give up the liability in the unlikely circumstance that something goes wrong with the tree and it causes injury or something along those lines. And we want to make sure that the city is making those safety-related decisions, especially. And again, taking proactive inspection cycle-based approach to street tree management over time will lead to a program that aligns more with what other folks are doing in the area. Here are our recommended revised street tree removal criteria. So again, the responsibility here would lie with the city manager designee, namely the city arborist. For public tree removal, that would involve these categories here. Number 1, death. That's a very easy decision to be made. The tree's dead, take it out. Number 2, tree risk rating. The way that the current categories are described, there's a lot of room for interpretation. We have industry standards in arboriculture that deal with tree risk, and it makes it a lot easier to make a finding where a tree either meets a criteria or doesn't in removing the tree. Many municipalities in the area do that successfully, in my opinion. So we recommend that approach be taken here. Tree condition rating, again, there are industry guidelines through the CTLA Guide for Plant Appraisal. And with those proactive inspections, you can take out things that are in conditions like irreversibly diseased or things that just won't be assets to the city. And species, with invasive species or otherwise undesirable species at the discretion of the urban forester. There's also the development-related criteria here. This brings in the Planning and Zoning Commission and ties it to things like the active transportation plan for transit facilities. So this would be kind of outside the city forester's purview in their own right, but we'd still want them involved. And obviously, we recommend that only the owner of the property that fronts the city tree is eligible to apply for a city tree permit. And then once it's reviewed, once the city makes its decision, a determination letter would then be issued. All right. So we know that the overarching goal outlined by the CAP that has shaped a lot of this is to increase tree canopy. As we looked into kind of the makeup of Albany's urban forest, it was evident that street trees make up a proportionally small fraction of trees in the city. Most of them are privately owned. So to enable some meaningful growth, we recommend that the city look into revising the ordinance to provide strong protection for private trees as well, and describe motivations, definitions, and clearly define responsibilities. Just to illustrate that point, here behind me, we see the two green pillars labeled S and T, I believe, yeah. So S are street trees, T are trees located elsewhere outside of the street, outside of the right-of-way. So you can see that the street trees account for approximately 4%, whereas the trees elsewhere are just over 15%. If meaningful canopy gains are to be made, or even, frankly, if the current canopy is to be maintained, those trees really need some consideration and protection, in our opinion. So that would be a next step kind of forward in line with the CAP's recommendation for an overarching urban forest master plan. All right, goal number 2 is more community-oriented. So we want to make sure the urban forestry department in the city can connect with an engaged and informed community to provide stewardship for trees, stewardship of trees that matches their needs. So the first action here is to design a cohesive and inclusive public outreach program focused on building awareness of the benefits of trees and how and why trees are protected in the city. In our public outreach throughout the course of this project, often folks weren't aware of how trees were maintained by the city, the shared maintenance agreement. So we want to make sure that the urban forestry program is more proactive in promoting the activities that they're doing in managing these trees. We all know, or it's easy to say that trees are good and get that information out there, and we want to make sure that the actual maintenance activities in maximizing those benefits is shared. All the hard work that the department is doing is known by the community. So we want to engage local community groups in urban forest stewardship activities that can look like planting days or watering or other sort of young tree maintenance. It's a really excellent way to get people involved and get people to care. And again, providing up-to-date information about tree protections and management on the city website above just tree removals is going to be vital as well. Become a Tree City USA. So Albany as a city meets a lot of the criteria for this already. One of the main things that needs to be done now is plan celebratory activities for Arbor Day and report on them and just apply for the thing. You get these really cool signs. It's a nice low-hanging fruit that I think the city of Albany would meet, number one, and number two, really benefit from. So I think this would be a great step forward. Okay, so next steps. We are working with the city to analyze budget projections to implement some of these key items and goals outlined in the street tree management plan to create a more solid roadmap forward. And we also hope to incorporate feedback from the city as well as you all here throughout the entire plan. So, you know, if any thoughts have come up on chapters 1 through 4 since we met last time, any that we hear tonight, we'd love to hear and incorporate. And I believe that's all we have for today.
All right, well, thank you very much. Bring it to the commission for questions, any specific clarifying questions you might have. And Commissioner Sardinius will raise her hand if she has a question, correct? Okay, very good. Any questions you'd have? Yeah, please.
Oh, can you clarify on how you would be able to like protect the privately owned trees?
Yeah, a lot of cities have enacted codes that protect trees on private property. So there's a very large category of different ways in which sort of cities do that. It's not really been studied for this project since this is specifically about street trees, but I can be happy to answer questions offline if you'd like about how a city might go about doing that.
We've talked about a tree ordinance beyond just, but that would be like a multi-body sort of larger lift, is that correct?
Yeah, this effort is just focused on the street tree portion of that. There's probably some.
There's not really an opening here for anything related to that?
No.
Okay, but I very much appreciate you bringing it up because it's clearly, obviously, an important issue. So it's good that we hear that. Other questions?
This is all right. Yeah, there it goes. I have a few questions. I was going to chime in on that one, but since we're going to push it off, because there's pros and cons, and you're going to make sure it's written. Can have adverse reaction. People don't put trees in, and they take them out. Anyway, what I want to talk about is the calculation. So if the average street tree, I don't know what our average street tree life is around here, 20, 25 years would be kind of generous.
I think the data or the research says that it's about 25 years.
Roughly.
So that would mean that if we have 5,000 trees in 25 years, we'd have to replace them all, basically in 25 years, because they're all different ages, and so they're dying at different times. So that alone would require about 300 trees or 200 trees a year just to keep the current canopy going.
I believe, and I might be talking out of turn, but I believe that we looked at that data, and that is in chapter 4, or 3. And we on average, the city of Albany removes, I think it was under 20 trees a year.
Under 20 trees, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 5,000 trees under 20. Yeah, something's kind of, the calculation's off. If they must be living much longer, or something's.
Like I said, these are averages.
Yeah, right.
And these are based on the study that I read that is the most applicable was the city of, a couple of cities in Southern California where their climate is a lot different than it is here. They average about 10 inches of rain a year. We average about 20 inches of rain a year. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I was looking at it too. My data found that it was for the Bay Area, it was about 25 years, same what you were saying. But
again, these are averages, and you know we can generalize and think about that. But we also, you know, we know how many trees the city of Albany is generally removing on an annual basis because of the information that staff has provided us. And so when we take that specific information for the city of Albany and then calculate it out in terms of projections, that's more specific information than taking an average throughout the Bay Area of studies across those things. We generally do benchmarking, and that's one of the pieces that we produce. It can be difficult to get that kind of detailed information from cities about how many trees a year they're removing. They don't always, you know, provide us with that kind of detail.
Understood. But the other thing I wanted, and not every tree, of course, goes through John. A lot of them are just, they planted last year and they died. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of small trees that never get reported. They just get
that
thrown in the
may
green
be
bin.
true for residential properties where they haven't gone through the city to have the tree planted. But John maintains records for all
gotcha.
trees that he plants.
So
So
if
we did
one-
go through that data.
Okay, good point.
And those would be included in the inventory, so it could be
Yeah,
relevant.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I was questioning on was, that you flashed the map of all the trees up there, and there's one area in Albany which didn't have any trees on it. It still doesn't have any trees in it. It doesn't look like it's part of the plan. And that's the other side of Albany Hill towards the freeway. And so part of our equity, we want to make sure the whole community gets, canopy as much as possible. And that's a very difficult place to understand because it's very tight, small homes. But there might be opportunity there. That's not, if you see that big blank spot south of Albany Hill, that seems like it might be an equity issue that could be resolved. Maybe people don't want them because it blocks their view.
I don't think it has anything to do with that, actually. If I'm thinking it correctly, this is a neighborhood that has full width sidewalk. It doesn't have a parkway. So those are going to be infrastructure items that we are not going to be able to cover in this project. So the goal would be certainly to plant trees in every available planting space, and at some point in the future, the City of Albany will run out of available planting spaces and may have to seek other kinds of funding in order to plant trees in the right-of-way, but that isn't going to happen in the next few years. So at this time, I agree with you, that's a real eyesore in terms of the canopy cover, but the reasons there that exist for not having street trees still exist and will exist for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I guess that's my point. Because it's not simple to put there, we don't do it, but does still, the community needs it. So that's
It's not that it's not simple, if you don't mind me pushing back a little. It's that it's very expensive.
Okay,
Right, so
well, yeah.
concrete removal is very expensive proposition, and if that's something that the commission would like to see us add as a recommendation, I think that would be a good use of a recommendation, because then the council can go back to its constituents and discuss whether or not that's a priority. But it is a very expensive proposition, which is why at this point we haven't sort of discuss that or pass that around in terms of what we've been thinking about with city staff.
Okay. And the last thing I was questioning was, we already mentioned it, tree preservation. Go ahead. That's it for now.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I heard the goal for the trees to be planted was like, the goal was 150 trees to be planted. How many trees are being planted like currently? I was wondering.
Yeah, it's, I believe, over 100 a year. Does that, about 100 a year, give or take? Yeah, we got data from John for the last handful of years. This year we have like 102. Yeah, so it's an increase from current levels. Yeah.
Commissioner Sardinas has her hand raised.
Excellent.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sardinas.
Awesome, thanks. One of my questions was about kind of the recommendation of which tree would go in which location, which is something that I know you talked a little bit about, but in the past we've talked about continuity of trees and how I know one of the goals is to strive for diversity, but from kind of the landscape architecture perspective, also like, on some of our streets we have a bunch of sycamores, and that provides, a kind of a look that is standard that some people have expressed that they really like. At least they did when I was on the commission 4 years ago. So I guess I'm just wondering, is the diversity like within a block or kind of just calculated in zones or across the whole city? And is there room for having kind of plans where on certain streets you would recommend certain kinds of trees to hit a type of aesthetic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that I'm going to start with the way that we looked at diversity in previous chapters. This was on a population level, using the amount of trees belonging to one species or one genus make up the urban forest. So that's kind of the overarching goal that we want to strive for. Right now, Albany does a good job of that, with the exception of crepe myrtle that is overrepresented. But that's even with these blocks that are designed and kind of thematically oriented. So there is definitely room to meet that goal with meeting diversity goals. I think there is also room for creative use of different species that can meet similar aesthetic contributions. One example that comes to my mind is, there are streets all around the Bay Area lined with sweet gums, and those often cause issues, but people love the fall color and kind of the mature, large stature of the trees. So picking species that offer a lot of those same aesthetic benefits that are maybe less maintenance issue prone is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about. So one thing that we've seen work in Berkeley is Nyssa sylvatica. The black tupelo offers really good fall color and not as much root damage. But that's an excellent thing to think about and something that we are incorporating into the plan.
Thanks. Another question that I had is around like soil conditions, and I guess really, maybe what I'm getting at a little more is, pardon me, how all this data will be tracked. And so when you talk about in defining the responsibilities and trying to track the maintenance over time, is part of that creating a database that's easy to access and use so that we can see like this tree doesn't do well in these areas? Because over where I live, it's very eroded and the trees don't really thrive there. And so I think being able to look at what's worked and what doesn't would make a lot of sense. And so I'm just curious if that's something that's been considered.
Yeah, so the city took the first step in doing that already with doing the tree inventory. So there is a baseline of what's there. Ideally, if there is a proactive maintenance program enacted, this maintenance would be tracked over time. There would be records of what trees don't do well and what do. This is already tracked with which trees are removed and why. But yeah, the record keeping is really important in shaping what we want to avoid and what we want to bring into the future.
I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Let's see, I had a few questions. One, getting back to the 150 trees a year planting goal, are there really that many like empty tree wells? It sounds like if there's only about 12, a dozen or 2 dozen tree removals a year, are there just really that many empty tree wells in your according to the census, or John? No. No?
But there are occasions, excuse me, where there's no tree and there can be a tree. But
Can the speaker pick him up when he's?
John,
I'm sorry.
why don't you come up to the?
if I can speak. We have a lot of locations.
You turned it up.
Off. Oh, okay. Now it's on. There's a lot of locations where we can plant trees, but it would require concrete removal or property owner agreement to have the tree planted. As far as empty basins, we'd be pretty good about replacing trees unless there's a outlying reason why that trees don't survive there, or property owners remove the tree after it's been planted or something like that.
So I think you're saying most of the tree wells already have trees, if I understand what you're saying, but we
Yeah.
only have 25 or so tree removals a year, so where's 150 going to go?
We would have to find more new locations for tree planting.
Does that mean cutting sidewalk?
That would mean a lot of sidewalk cutting, I think. That's been increasing a little bit over time, especially since we now have the free tree planting, including concrete removal. Some more people are applying to have that done.
Okay,
So,
all right, thanks. And then in chapter 6, one of the things it said was set standard sizes for tree wells and planting strips to allow for healthy tree growth. And it said something about getting the right trees and all that, but I noticed there was no mention of roots and sidewalks. That's something we're fixated on because that's what a lot of the trees that come before us are about, and the city staff and the city funds, spend a lot of time and money on trees that mess with the sidewalks. And we've gone through lists of trees and made sure that with the subcommittee or two that have come up with ones that are good for our climate and are right-sized for the wells and all that. I'm not seeing that in that document, and I don't see any mention of sidewalks or roots. I'm thinking some specific things should be in there about that, but do you think that's addressed with something that's already there?
Okay. Yeah, you can't ignore that routes and sidewalks come into conflict very frequently, and you're not alone in dealing with that issue either. As we looked at the program data that John and staff provided us, few trees are removed for that reason, so we're not losing too many. Root pruning and other creative solutions like bulbing out the sidewalk are successful ways to preserve trees with that. But to get to your point of considering that in species recommendations, we can add some of that data. Select Tree through KALB rates trees for sidewalk damage potential, so we can include data on the recommended tree list for the level of sidewalk damage potential that they have.
Okay, so please do that.
Yes, will do.
I want to maybe just jump one in about the sidewalk program. About a year, maybe a year and a half ago, we updated our sidewalk details such that whenever we do a sidewalk repair, we actually expand the area around street trees to include the curve that you probably have seen around town, as well as laterally expanding it. So we're giving trees as much space as we can within the context of the sidewalk program.
Yeah, which also says we're spending a lot of time and money on the issue. And some of it's right-sizing the tree for the well, and some of it's the species. And so having that data or something in there about sidewalks and factoring that in for which species should go where, I think is important.
Can I sidewalk damage is a fact of life with if you have street trees. There's no community that does not have sidewalk damage. So starting with that, yeah, we look for trees. As Ryan mentioned, KALB will describe trees, and it'll tell whether it's a low, high, medium, sidewalk damage rated tree. So we try to pick the right tree, and the size, the species of the tree has a lot to do with it too. But
I'm just going to, we've kind of slipped into discussion, so we can hold on to this and.
Let's keep
Yeah.
with questions. That's
Yeah,
a good point.
and then we'll come
Thank
back
you.
to that, yeah.
So then, is there something in the report or the chapter 6 you would say that says the tree needs to be the right size for the well?
Yeah, the whole idea behind the sort of right tree, right place verbiage that is used kind of industry standard throughout the industry is to look at the available planting space and then match the tree species with the available planting space. That's the goal of that statement.
Okay. And then it sounds like you said there are some other cities that do proactive tree maintenance. In the report, do you have a list of some of those and the kind of things they do and how much it costs?
Yeah, through our benchmarking, we did provide some estimates and values on, I don't know if that information ended up in the report or if it's just in the sort of supporting documents, but we certainly have costs from other cities about what they spend on pruning.
Okay, so, all right. And then, let's see, under, it says there's, one of the items for tree removal was proactive tree removal for certain species. That's come up before with liquid ambers that are failing, of a certain age in Albany that are kind of failing in concert. And we know that we've heard that some other cities have proactive plans to remove their liquid ambers. Are you aware of what species are on that list or what might be on that list in Albany?
Of species that are sort of retired or species that would replace sweet gum?
As I recall, it was item 4 in your street tree removals. One was death, blah, 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 and number 4 was it's on this list of trees.
Oh, invasive species. No, sweet gum is not an invasive species. Invasive species are trees like trees of heaven would be the quintessential invasive species. It will grow anywhere. It is, in general, it should be removed wherever possible, whenever possible. And I would recommend any tree of heaven in the right-of-way be removed, just by the fact that it is very invasive to the environment.
It's more of a volunteer, almost like a weed or something?
It is, unfortunately, yeah.
Okay, I see. So
Really
that's more
bad.
what you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
And then I noticed it said in the document, on your thing, it revised the street tree criteria for street tree removal to reference industry standards and remove our commission from safety decisions. So that sounds reasonable on the surface, but it would certainly help with removing them more quickly when there's an actual safety thing involved. And so one question would be, would our commission be involved with helping to set the criteria for those kind of removals? We've been involved with that in the past, and yeah.
Yeah, so there's a great question, and part of the city's sort of responsibility is would be moving forward if the city were to move to a proactive maintenance, would be to take a more proactive maintenance approach. And safety, of course, is number one, right? We have to keep the city safe for people, especially if the city is sort of on the hook for making sure that those things are happening. So taking safety decisions sort of out of the realm of commissioners, the idea behind that is to put safety decisions back in the hands of the city staff members who are hired to do that work. So setting parameters and criteria around safety, there are industry standards, and that is what would set those criterion for safety decisions that are made by city staff. I would foresee that there would be some communication with the commission around what trees are being removed for safety reasons and what those safety reasons are. In general, a lot of cities will have a sort of a description of the type of tree, the size, its location, and the reason for its removal, sort of on a website or on a list that is reviewed and on the city's website for anyone to review, so that they have some information about why trees are being removed in their area or what have you. But they don't necessarily have an opportunity to stop a tree removal from happening for a safety reason. And yeah.
And right now we have an emergency tree removal process that we don't have a say in, but we get a report on those kind of things. So my question would be, say a tree drops a limb, and then often those kind of things come to us as like, okay, should we remove it or not? How bad is the safety concern? And so there's like shades of gray there. So are you saying that these national standards or whatever make it cut and dry as to whether you remove the tree or not?
They try to, yeah. The goal is to make it more cut and dry. You know, trees are living organisms, so it's never really cut and dry. And all we can do is make decisions based on industry standards and our body of expertise on a particular subject. But those safety decisions do need to be made by arborists. So that is kind of where we're kind of trying to go with this. I think one key piece that maybe I'm missing is saying that the city has, or commissioners have an opportunity to work with city staff in terms of deciding sort of what is okay and what's not okay. So for example, if you have a senescing tree and it's losing a lot of limbs, one way to handle that would be to reduce the limbs and sort of, you know, somebody driving by might think, oh no, what did they do to that tree? But really what we're doing is reducing the safety concern, but still preserving part of the tree. And so those steps can be taken if there is good public outreach about those steps that are being taken. So I used to work for a city in Southern California, and we would, with senescing trees, we would leave in the right-of-way, but we would greatly reduce the risk of failure by reducing their limbs. And then we would have some signage usually, or it would be available on the city's website. But our community didn't want to see senescing trees removed. So that was one way to kind of avoid that.
Okay, thanks. That's it for my questions.
So related to that, I'm just wondering if a part of the puzzle here is that if we take a more proactive position, are we increasing the city's liability for failure? Because right now, it's kind of property owner.
I think it's the liability stays the same. It's
okay.
just that the city is responding to it in one way and can reallocate funds in order to respond to it differently.
Very good. And then what role would you see this body playing in tree removal applications? Things that aren't safety, but are there other places we would have a role?
Yeah, I would see that this body would hopefully be working with community folks to do more proactive things like tree planting and making decisions around varieties of trees that could be planted in certain neighborhoods, or the look of a certain neighborhood, potentially, certainly reviewing on a periodic basis the types of tree work that's happening, but but maybe just changing the removal role, which, you know, frankly, would enhance the everybody's understanding of the program, I think, because you might have a more holistic view of the program in general if you were to be involved in some of those other programs as well.
I'm going to disagree with you on all that, but I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner Sardinas has her hand raised.
Very good.
Hi, one last question. I was intrigued about including kind of private landowners and kind of this concept of the full, you know, urban forest. And I guess I was just wondering what the role, since we're on the Park Rec and Open Space Commission, is of trees and other open spaces, and if like there are any recommendations around that in the plan, or if that seems like it falls into a totally different category.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not really a part of this project, so.
Yeah, and my understanding is that this body doesn't actually have any say in private property trees. If we did have an ordinance, it would be a citywide ordinance. That would be a.
Yes, but I was going to also say for city parks and open spaces, we bring those issues regularly to the commission. So
Yeah.
my sense is that would stay the same.
Yeah, any guidance on trees on private property would be a whole separate effort, not part of this body except tangentially. All right, any final questions? Yeah.
So it was stated that there weren't like a lot of empty tree lots because there's only like 20 trees getting removed a year, and so there might need to be like cutting sidewalk and concrete removal. Is that the same kind of concrete removal that was in like the empty patch of trees that was in like the bottom, or I don't know which direction that is, of concrete removal, and like, because you also said it was really expensive. So I'm just kind of confused on like where the trees are going and why can't they go in the one area?
Oh, the area of the South Albany Hill?
If the trees are also gonna be put in sidewalk areas.
Yeah, I think that the goal is to plant trees where there's available space and where there is budget for removing concrete, that would be done as well.
The area you're talking about, Albany Hill, where there's no trees, what Chris brought up before, the sidewalks are, we need an ADA, what do you call it,
Width.
appropriate sidewalk. So sidewalks are only about 4 feet wide there, if that. One of the streets, Washington Avenue, the city has allowed parking on the sidewalk, so the sidewalk is like a foot or 2 feet wide there. That's basically, there's really no room, even if we can't remove concrete in a sidewalk, that would only leave a foot of pedestrian space.
It's not a question of comments, so I'll wait.
Yeah, well, hold on. Let's hold on with comments. Any final questions? Jeff, yeah.
Chair Abbott, Commissioner Julie Chang Frank did email to you and to staff some questions, and if I could just read those into the
Sure.
record. I think they've kind of been
I
addressed.
kind of think they've been addressed. I think, yeah, so
But-
go
but
ahead,
just
please.
to
Absolutely,
acknowledge it,
absolutely.
How is the right species defined? What is the criteria used to determine if a species is right for a given planting location? And conversely, what would be considered a wrong species? Her second question was, who will make the determination of what type of tree is the right species for a given location? It may be quite arbitrary if it's made on a case-by-case basis. And then the third question was, what will the Commission's role be in defining the criteria used to determine if a species is right or wrong, and what oversight will the Commission have to ensure the criteria is being followed?
Yeah, no, good, thank you. I kind of had assumed it had been answered, but no, that's great that you bring it up. So, yeah, maybe a little finer point on is the thought that it would be, this kind of gets into what Commissioner Sardinas was saying, would it be always a case-by-case basis, what tree is right for here, or would there be some sort of rubric or some sort of guidance that would guide what she wants to use the word appropriate rather than right as part of what she wants to do, and I think that's fine. And then formalize a role that we would have in advising those sorts of decisions, if not specific ones.
Yeah, so in general, the way that species lists work, planting lists work, is that there would be sort of a categorization of, in general, this tree would work in a 4-foot wide parkway, or would work in a 3-foot wide parkway, or would only work in a 5-foot or larger parkway, stuff like that. So we kind of try and generalize trees into small, medium, and large. And of course, it is always on a case-by-case basis. Every site has to be reviewed before a tree is planted there. There's no one who's going to look at the site on, on a list and then pick the planting species. At the moment, John works with residents to plant a species that they want as well. I think that's a great thing to have a rapport with the resident. But residents are also given a lot of opportunity to choose a smaller tree. And a lot of people have taken up the opportunity to plant a smaller tree. And I would envision that this commission would make some rules around whether or not people can choose, if they have a large parkway that could house a large mature-sized tree, that they would not actually be able to choose a small maturing tree in that location. So that, I think, would be one really great role for this commission to have, because as the city takes on more responsibility, hopefully this commission would have more authority to say, actually, this doesn't meet the goals of our climate action plan or our street tree management plan. This planting a larger size tree in this location actually is what is going to work for us.
Right, excellent. Okay, now, any final questions? Seeing none, we will open for public comment on this item. Folks, raise your hands. Not seeing anybody here, so online, raise your hand.
No hands raised online.
Give you another few seconds, just in case you're having a hard time finding the button. I know we've been doing it 5 years, but it's a hard time finding the button sometime. All right. Very good. We will bring it back then for discussion. Anybody want to start things off? It didn't cover it before?
I have a few comments. And I appreciate Commissioner Frankel's comment about the sidewalk repair. It's a perfect time, especially on that underserved part of Albany Hill, which is down below the freeway. They got a lot of dust. They really need the trees there. I'm going to push back on it's not all concrete. I was just looking at it online here, and there's actually a planting strip on Johnson, planting strip on Washington, planting strip on Cleveland, which has very few trees in it. So there is opportunity down there. And John, you were talking about east of Pierce. I'm referring mostly to west of Pierce. That's probably the bigger issue, because that's where they get most of the dust from the freeway. It's down below there. And so I think there is opportunity. So I know you haven't done the plan totally, but just maybe we should concentrate more on that. Not concentrate, but make up for the lack of attention they've had in the past. The other thing was, too, the count. I just can't figure it out. If we have 5,000 trees, even if the trees live for 100 years, that still means we've got to replace 50 a year or something. Right? So there's something wrong in that 24 tree a year count. just doesn't add up. If we have 5,000 trees and they live to 100 each, we'd still be planting 50 trees a year, right? Am I doing my math correctly? In addition, and you're only replacing 24, so we have super trees here, or there's something we're not catching up with.
I think we just have young trees here.
That might be the case. So
Yeah.
there is a time when all of a sudden we're going to be having to kick up the.
Yes, in about 50 years, you're going to be removing a lot more trees.
All right, so we got to put some money in the piggy bank, because you got to stay on for another 30 years. All right, those are my major comments, thank you.
Okay, other discussions?
Yeah, one was, I think I think for equity, particularly on the south end of Albany Hill, the shoulder there, but wherever there are not as many, where the density of trees, where the canopy of trees is lower, I think the city should prioritize the funds and the time to, cut the sidewalk to make planting wells, if that's what the actual issue is. And I looked, basically live in that neighborhood, and I think there's some sidewalks, for example, Solano Avenue itself, that goes up, that part that goes up and over the hill, and Cerrito and Polk are relatively flat. They have, I think, pretty standard sidewalks, so I think the city needs to reevaluate that and see what the actual issue is, and then prioritize the funds for doing what it takes for the equity part. So if that's not already in there, to prioritize funding for equity issues, then that should be. And then what was the thing? What was the thing I was saying should be in the report? Oh gosh, earlier.
In the select tree root damage.
Oh, roots and the.
Yeah, oh yeah, so the San Luis Obispo thing. So, and I definitely recognize that, trees and sidewalks and all have, but it's something that comes up all the time in our commission, and we spend quite a bit of time. There's some species that I believe are not on the list because of root problems, and then right sizing. So just some mention of sidewalks. There's 0 in there right now, and roots, and using that San Luis Obispo ranking would be as one criteria I think is important to include in there. And yeah, I'm a little concerned. Well, it sounds like from what you were saying about this other issue, what would be part of the this commission's purview. I think it's not as cut and dry as the, as far as what should come before us and what shouldn't. From what you were saying, it sounded like we should mostly be focused on outreach and getting people to go out and plant trees and things like that. And certainly that's something that the city and this commission can be thinking about. But, and definitely, like, we already have emergency tree removals, so if it's a clear and present danger and we have criteria for that, John can jump in and remove it. But there's so many things we see where, even like your first criteria, you said number 1 is it's dead. If it's dead, okay, you remove it. Well, there's so many where it's like, well, it's 60% dead, and it's got this, that, and the other thing. And so, and it may or may not be, about to fall over on somebody, but there's reasons why it comes before our body and why people want to get rid of it, and why sometimes we approve those. So I still think there's a role for this commission to see some tree removals. I agree that it would be great if the safety issue was automated, and if that was very clear-cut rubric. I'm not sure it exists, so I'm hesitant to see. I'd like to see something in the document that says that'll get worked out with the commission. That's what I would like to see.
And I would add, I don't think this commission has ever said no to a removal application on the basis of safety. I'm pretty sure not since I've been here you've ever said that. But my concern on this is that this is the only place, we are representing the community. This is the only place the community can speak up on these things. And if it doesn't happen here, they don't have a voice at all. And I'm not thinking about the ones that are clear safety issues. That's, I mean, like I say, we always say yes to those anyway. I'm thinking of property damage. I'm a property owner. I might have a different perspective of what constitutes acceptable property damage than John would or somebody else would. Now, one option is just to say you can't consider property damage anymore. That the importance of our tree canopy is so important that we can't let homeowners consider the damage to their property. I don't agree with that. I think we need to have that discussion, and this would be the place to have that discussion. For instance, there's nuisance trees like the female ginkgo biloba that makes a huge mess every year. And I know that as a property owner, that would be really frustrating, and I would be willing to approve the removal of something like that. Whereas again, if the only consideration is maximizing the canopy, that might not be. So that's why I think there is an important role for this body, if nothing else, so that the community feels like they have an opportunity to speak up. Otherwise, it's just going to be frustrating and lawsuits. I mean, it seems to me. But that's you know. But again, safety, fine. Make it automatic, great. Bring it here. Doesn't not really make a difference. But for other things, I think there's an opportunity.
And Commissioner Sardinas has her hand raised.
Yeah.
No, I think those are really good points. And so one of the things that both of you brought up, I would agree with is that I want it to be highlighted in the plan, like where there are opportunities for public input and what the responsibilities of the commission are. And when there is a procedure that is followed, if it needs to be developed, kind of how that, you know, who would take responsibility for that process. It sounds like our commission in a lot of places, but in terms of safety, it sounds like, you know, if there's a way for, if the arborist does not approve a permit application to remove a tree, then maybe is there a way for it to get routed to the commission, you know, for it to be reviewed at that time. And I think just one of the things that maybe I should have asked about, but is I'm not totally clear on how much this document is a living document that will change over time versus kind of something that gets updated every 10 years, as was brought up. And I think like having, you know, being able to show which parts do change or are open to public comment or are, you know, being brought before the commission would be really helpful in that. But I do think that it would be helpful to, you know, in addition to the 10-year review of meeting our goals, having annual or biannual reviews. So if we are having a tracking database, we're able to see, are we, you know, how many trees are we removing? Are we achieving our goals? Did we hit an additional 1%? If not, why? Are we having, you know, diverse trees, large trees, ones that, you know, support wildlife and are native? Just how are we meeting those? Like I think a brief summary of that would help. And if there is the ability to then tweak things a little bit for pieces that can be altered, like how can we, what is that process and how do we engage with the public to do that?
Okay.
I wanted to add that I think it would be good to put benchmark data into the report. So, because it's going to be a question of, that's going to be like the first thing on the city council's mind is like, okay, well, we don't do this proactive maintenance. Who else does this, and how much? What do they do? What do they actually do? There's a variety of things they could or couldn't do, and how much do those cities say they're spending on that? Like, I think those would be front of mind on the city council's mind when they come to actually accepting this report for, like, what does it actually mean to be doing proactive maintenance, and who else is, are we blazing a trail here, or is this something that's pretty standard, and if so, you know, how many East Bay cities are already doing this, or other cities in the Bay Area, or is this more something in Indiana they're doing it, or, you know, and if you have some budgetary numbers, it just doesn't have to be like a huge thing, but just a list of cities and what they do, and if you know how much it costs, that would be good to know.
Yeah, that was presented at the last meeting that we were at. So in October, we went over that information in detail.
And it'll be in the report?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I have kind of a process question. Will you be taking the report or an outline by, I want to say the, like the Transportation Commission? They might have input on sight lines, corners, things like that?
I can take that question. Yes.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that in the next month or two, essentially repeating this, a shorter version of this presentation tonight. Climate Action Committee is particularly interested in it, but also the Transportation Commission. Not exactly remembering what meeting it is, but it's.
Well, that's fine. I just,
Upcoming
I figured it probably was. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
sometimes I surprise you folks. I just wanted to have that chance. And regarding the sidewalk program, you said that when the opportunity exists, you bulb out. I mean, how proactive is that? Is that something you?
Essentially at every
It's
tree.
automatic. Well, every tree. Well, what about an opportunity where there's a sidewalk being repaired,
We have it places
and you could add a tree well that goes out a little bit or something?
We've done that
Okay.
in places. We actually look to expose as much, remove as much concrete as possible.
And is that part of the sidewalk repair program, or is it just something we're doing?
Well, yes, it's part of the sidewalk program, because a lot of times not only the sidewalk, but the concrete over the planter strip is deteriorated as well. So,
Sure.
there's not a lot of cost in taking it out. So we take it out and don't replace it in some cases.
So here's a question. There are locations where you could push further out into the street. There's not enough room for parking. That's basically what we're talking about. Is there a way to expand significantly to create a sizable tree well, something like that?
I mean, that would be a case-by-case basis. We've done that a couple
Obviously, there are
times.
probably not that many, but there might be a few.
But we have done a couple of those, if you remember those.
Exactly, yeah.
Pass-through bulb outs.
Yeah.
I think we would look to do things like that where we can, and that's really a convergence of a number of things of, do we have the right drainage, and how does it work with parking and so forth.
I think this is more just, to think about when we are out of space and we need to start making more space. That would be an opportunity. All right. Oh, and then one more comment, and this is really a comment back, probably 10 or 12 years ago, an outside organization came in and sponsored some dramatic tree planting efforts, street tree planting efforts. I think they concentrated on the blocks on either side of San Pablo, and they went door to door. They got tons of people to sign up, and they went out there and cut the concrete and planted the trees. They still exist. I mean, I don't know. There might be opportunities for that.
Yeah, that was done in my neighborhood,
Yeah.
and there was some people that took them up on that. On Adams Street, where I am, there's a number of multifamily houses, and the landlords that don't necessarily want to, they're just like, it's too much work, or I don't know what, but it's a bigger lift to get some of them on board, it seemed like. So, but there are definitely some people that took them up on that, and some of the trees are still there and doing well.
And then finally, whatever information we put out talking about the value of street trees, we need to mention property value, because that's going to be important to people, because it really does boost property value. Okay, other discussion points?
I've run into in the past where you have a corporation that owns a housing project or a business. They don't like trees because they perceive it as a liability issue. So they're always fighting for trees out of their right-of-way, so just throwing that out there.
You may need a stronger
Yeah.
message there, as it were. All right.
Commissioner Sardinas, go ahead.
Thanks. I don't know if we said it because we've been asking so many questions and having so much discussion, but I actually wanted to just say how impressed I am by all the goals and actions that were included in this. I think they're really comprehensive. I think that it really sets us on a great path for moving forward. So I'm actually really excited about the plan and kind of how it's shaping up. And I think that, obviously there was a lot of feedback, but I think that's because there was so much great pieces of it that were put together. And I just wanted to express that to the folks that presented.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo that. We're nibbling at
Yeah,
little
that's right.
pieces, but
Yes, we
the
are.
huge amount of work, and it's
Just take for
very much
granted we
enjoyed.
really like your work. We're just going.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so sweet to hear. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate that.
Any other, did you get something from us of value? I think we provided what you're asking. Okay, probably a little more than you bargained for. All right, I'm going to,
If I may just give
yeah,
you one
sure.
little update for next steps. We obviously have a lot of work to do to create a report that we'll bring back to you. We're also in the planning stages of trying to pick a date and a venue for some more community engagement. And there are a lot of different plans, particularly our active transportation plan, that are in play as well, and how all these fit together. But do stay tuned for something in the next month or two where we'll want to roll this out to the broader community to get some feedback. And it will be something that's you know, what you've seen and maybe a little bit more, so that they've got really something to react to.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks again. Have a good evening. All right. Moving on then. Next item, 5.1. This is the sugar-sweetened beverage tax item. Do we have discussion on it? Thank you, John. Have a good evening. So this is our annual exercise of suggesting expenditures for the sugar-sweetened beverage tax revenue, which fortunately is going down, I understand, which is what it's supposed to do. So that's all good.
I heard that was more of an accounting glitch with the new vendor or some software vendor. Or the city council mentioned something about that. I don't know.
You're such a cynic.
So I'm Jamira. I'm going to talk to you about the sugar-sweetened beverage tax recommendation for FY26. So last year for FY25, we recommended 3 items to council. Unfortunately, none of those 3 items were picked. A list there shows the 5 that were picked. However, we did advance 2 of the projects that we sent forward last year, which was the inclusive swing. As you can see there, there's a picture of the inclusive swing that we had installed at Ocean View Park. There's also one installed at Memorial Park. And we also are planning to move forward with the sand volleyball court and incorporating that as part of the CIP. Correct? Yes. Okay. This year, we estimating around $220,000 to get for the tax revenue. So as you can see, that did go down compared to last year. The items listed there are 5 items that we are recommending to the commission. Those are not set in stone, just some items that we thought could help benefit the city and its residents. Those are estimated dollar amounts. So the sand volleyball court at Ocean View, we're hoping that 10 to 20,000 could be incorporated as part of the SSB tax for helping out with pathways and things like that. The water bottle filling station at Ocean View, as well as the Greenway, 15,000. Pickleball portable net storage, 5,000, and then recreation sports supplies, 5,000. So here's a picture of where the sand volleyball court would be. As you can see, it's all grass. We will be turning that into sand. And if you look on the right side, you can see that's where it is located behind Ocean View Park, behind all the trees. It looks like you wanted to jump in, so I was gonna. The sand volleyball court right now, we're estimating it about $125,000 total for the project. That would be part of the CIP, which is why we're recommending partial funding from SSB to be around 10 to 20,000. Next, we have the Albany Greenway water bottle filling station. Right now, there is a water fountain there, as you can see. It's pretty old. Right here, we have a plaque that states it was put in by Bart in 1967. We're hoping to get a bottle filler and put it about here, so that way we can keep all the other aspects and still have it accessible for people to use. Here we have the Ocean View Park right now. This is the current water filling station here, which is pretty old. No one uses it because of its location and how old it is. It always has sand in it. No one wants to drink from that. So the proposal will be to include a newer model that you see there, and this will help provide water for pickleball as well as the baseball field. It's getting a lot more use now that the pickleball has been open, and so we want to make sure that we are catering to those people there. This is the pickleball portable net storage. It wouldn't necessarily be this exactly, but it would be great to have something right now. The people have to bring in the portable nets because we don't have a place to store them. So this would give us a place to store those nets as well as other supplies, rackets and things like that for people to use, make it very simple. That way everyone can use it and not just the people who have their own nets. And also to provide recreation supplies that would include crash pads for the baseball fields, goals, bases, and other supplies that recreation could use. And that would be it. I'm pretty sure Mark has some stuff to add because I'm pretty sure I left some out, but.
You're not gonna,
Oh,
Oh, no, I'm,
you don't have other things to add until we ask questions about it.
she did wonderfully.
I agree.
I got a
Any
question.
questions from the commission?
Yeah, the pickleball, I'm just not sure how it works. So people have to go there with their own net to set it up right now?
on that there's a permanent court, so they don't have to set up a net on that, but to use the tennis court part, they have to have a portable net.
All right, yeah.
And right now, from what I understand, the only people who are using the painted net, the painted ones, are when a group comes in and rents the whole facility for tournaments. And by having our own nets that we could, if someone wants to rent it, that we can give them the combination, they can come set up the nets, and then they can use those courts. Because the pickleball is packed all the time.
Is it in the middle of the day? Is it on a weekday?
It's surprising how many.
10 o'clock at night.
We used to have storage for nets.
Yeah.
Do we not have that anymore?
There is a storage.
There's a lockbox there now.
But that's a private one.
Okay.
That's the pickleball group.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, so we would want our own out there that would be available to everybody.
Just a pair of bolt cutters with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one might be there as well. but,
Right. And that is on the side by the backboard, right? Or it would be somewhere else?
No, it's actually would probably be co-located with the drinking fountain.
Okay, over on that.
East
end,
side.
The Ocean View
Yeah,
school side.
side.
Yeah, and, okay, all right. And you were thinking of moving the drinking fountain towards the baseball fields, right? So it brings it out a
Yeah, we'd
little
move
bit?
it out, so that's really tucked back there in
Yeah,
a weird
yeah.
way. And
I didn't even know it was there.
After
After playing softball there for years, yeah.
So I think we would pull it out so it would be closer to the pathway, not
Yeah.
on the pathway, but just
Right.
off the pathway.
Okay. Yeah. Other questions?
Commissioner Sardinas, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. Related to the pickleball storage, is there any concern that people would steal the nets, or is there going to be a way that it will be secured in some way, or is it just kind of open and like you can open it, but
It will
closed
be a combination lock that once you rent the field, you'll be able to get the lock combination and then you'll be able to access the storage unit. And if you rented it last and it's not there, then we'll know who took it.
Okay.
It's a similar
And then,
process. It's a similar process. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, go for it.
It's a similar process that's used for the field supplies that like bases and so forth when you rent the field. So there is a risk that things get stolen, but
No, that's
I
great.
think that's just
wasn't
cost of
sure
doing
if there was-
business.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then for the water bottle filling stations are the same cost, but with one of them, you said that it needs to be moved. And then with the one at Ohlone Greenway, it's just kind of in the same location. I guess I was just wondering if there was a reason why the prices weren't different, if you potentially had to do more at one site, or
It's about the same amount. It's about the same amount of work at both of them. I kind of scoped out the sites. What we would do is dig up the water line and move it out to a location and install it. So my guess is that would be both. They're all about the same order of magnitude of costs. So these aren't dialed in cost estimates. It's more of an order of magnitude that we think we can get the project done in that. So.
And you're not, are you planning to replace the 1967?
No,
Did you see next
I think
to
we
it?
would keep that, and, it's kind of, I was out there, it's kind of a cool.
Oh, it is, yeah,
a very
absolutely.
cool
That's-
thing.
I was concerned, yeah.
It's just not super usable, and, looking on the back, you can see the water line coming up, we can tap into that, run it along
you
the
go.
side, and put it at a point where it's easily accessible,
good.
somewhere along that.
For the exercise equipment that we had requested last year, I know that, I think it kind of basically prompted the subcommittee to research it. And can you remind us where that's at now?
It's going to be incorporated in the CIP. The direction we got was, so last year when we envisioned this, it was just replacement of equipment, the sort of in-kind equipment. I think we're going to take a step back, do more of a safety surface, and have more robust equipment out there. So that's going to be a more robust project that we have in the CIP.
Okay.
And this water fountain would be a good complement to that.
So I have a question, kind of anticipating a question that council might have. Don't rec sports leagues pay fees? Why aren't they buying, why aren't those fees going to buy the new bases and backboards? Goals and like,
That's a valid.
okay, just, there we go.
What we were talking about is, a lot of things are looking tired out there, and in terms of bases, we've got a request from, I think it was the softball and Little League groups of wanting these safety bases that have, I guess, an orange side and a place for the runners to go and a place for the fielders to go, just so avoid conflict. So there's
First base.
there's a little newer stuff coming out.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right, I think that's it for questions. We'll go back then, public comment. Is anybody still tuned in?
There are a few people online, but no hands are raised
hands for
for
public comment?
questions
All right,
or comments.
give them another,
I was
second or
talking
two.
very slowly to see if anyone was gonna raise their hand, and no hands
they know they want
raised.
to, but they're not, oh, come on, don't be bashful. All right, very good. We'll bring back for discussion. So at this point, what we're looking for are comments on these, suggestions for new items. When does this goes quick, pretty soon. We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, so this goes, and
This is the meeting where we're
this
going
is the meeting, and I believe it's going to go to the first meeting in May,
May,
which is
okay.
before our next commission meeting.
We don't have to make a choice, right? These are all,
So what we did last time is, if I think we had 6 or 7 items last time that we recommended 3 that we would advance, and what we did is provided more information and cost estimates about it, and made a more formalized proposal that we submitted to the council. Anticipate doing something similar here.
So after the crossing guards, how much money is actually
I
left?
think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Where
I mean, they get 100
crossing guards and some of the other ones are take up a bulk of the money.
Sure.
From what I understand, last year we projected we would get 260, but it came in substantially lower. This time we're projecting higher than, I think it was 180, 190, something. Does that sound familiar? But this is higher.
A little high, I see.
I think it's more of in line with what we think we're going to get. But the issue about the crossing guards is still valid.
I mean, it's like 150,000 or something.
183,000.
183, so we're really looking at 50,000 maybe.
That's why I was, what is,
Right, something, yeah. And just to be clear, we're just making suggestions. Many commissions are making
It's like
suggestions.
3 commissions, I think.
Yeah, so-
Transportation, us, and planning and zoning, I think. Rise.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, with all that setting the stage, discussion of the item here?
Is there anything up there you don't like that you would
Yeah.
like removed? Is there anything that you would like to add?
no, I like this list, and I like the simplicity, rather than have tons of things to choose from. This is nice and simple, and these all look really relevant. I think I'm into repairing things first before we buy new things, so I think
Commissioner Sardinas, go ahead.
sorry, were you still speaking?
No,
I didn't mean
no, I'm done. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think I agree. And in the spirit of the like sugar-sweetened beverage tax, I kind of feel like the ones that stand out to me are the water bottle filling stations, because it's encouraging people to like stay hydrated and use non-sweetened beverages. And so kind of like, I don't know if you prioritize them or anything, but those are the ones that seem like they make a lot of sense. And I thought, to Commissioner Abbott's point, like some of the sports supplies do seem like if there were other sources of revenue like fees that could be applied towards that, that seems like it makes sense. But again, I know it's not our role to make those decisions.
Just for some context, in my involvement with the sugar-sweetened beverage, the water bottle filling stations has been one that has been accepted by the council.
I think the first year they did a whole bunch, like the first couple years. They did
yeah.
several, yeah.
I think these are two particularly
I think those are good.
good
those are
ones
good.
because there's a good case around
I
that.
think these should be a high priority, yeah.
Yeah. I would remove the sports equipment. I just don't
Sure
see
thing.
that going anywhere. But like the others.
What we tried to do is give a range of things that are
I know, that just says, yeah, that's not going to go. I'm just telling you right now, it's not going to go.
It's not just sports equipment. It's also like the crash pads that go on the poles and
People
the
pay
back.
to use these fields, so that's where the money should come from.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I see.
So you guys are requesting to have, we won't move forward with the sports supplies, but everything else is okay, or is there? And it sounds like priority one would be the water bottle filling stations.
I mean, if we were going to have priorities,
Well, last year we did have priority one, priority
Okay, well,
two,
that's-
priority three, so I don't know if you guys want to do that again this year, or if you just want to lay it all out and let them
I don't
choose.
know. Rhetorically, what do you think? Or just
I think maybe just say that I would say the water bottle filling stations would be the highest priorities, and then let them.
just
Repair the swing. Yeah, I like the idea of fixing that swing.
which swing?
The inclusive swing. at the-
We've
unless that's-
already
that was
installed.
last
it.
year.
That's already done.
Oh,
That's
that's-
completed.
Yes.
All right, all
It was
right. Sorry, I
proposed
missed-
last year, but not accepted, but they did it another way.
We just did
Oh,
it.
got it,
anyways.
yeah, just these four.
Okay, one question about the pickleball storage, net storage is that money just for the storage cabinet, or is it also for a full set of paddles and balls and nets, so that if
Nets.
somebody rents?
It'd be nets.
Just nets?
It would be nets and storage.
Okay.
And the
The
storage
nets
locker
and the
itself.
storage.
Okay.
And possibly paddles too, but that's a minor cost relative to the other two.
I mean, so basically we don't have enough money to do the sand volleyball court with this.
Well,
This is just additional.
so my thinking about the sand volleyball court and putting on this is we're projecting a much higher cost than we did in last year's sugar-sweetened beverage, partially because it's a much more developed project. We're looking at improving pathways around the area. If there's the pathway from UC Village through that area is pretty deteriorated. It's a much more complete project. So that's why we're saying let's try to get some funding
Augment
from
it, yeah.
somewhere else.
Shave off a
just
little
to-
bit of this.
Right.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Oh, just like Commissioner Trinkle had just started. Oh,
sorry.
I would definitely agree that the water bottle filling should be like priority, but also for the pickleball thing, would that like, because people right now are just renting it and they're bringing their own, right?
Just for the 2 courts on the tennis court.
So you're saying that adding that thing on the other courts would like make it more like.
So the other courts can be rented and they have nets there and they're permanent nets. These are the two courts on the tennis court are ones where we need to use portable nets for pickleball. And so these will be city-owned portable nets that come with your rental, essentially.
And right now, you can't use it without nets. And so the only people that can use it are people who rent the whole thing and come with their own nets. And it's usually leagues or competition who do that, not people who might come in for just regular use
It's
residents.
because they just don't have nets. Most of those folks
Exactly.
don't have. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, based on the amount of people that there's like playing pickleball, like I like walked past it like really late at night, and there's definitely like so many people playing pickleball.
Yeah.
I think that would be probably helpful just for the amount of people. But I think water should still be a priority.
Okay. So it sounds like so far, priority 1 is the water filling stations, priority 2 would be pickleball, or?
I think, yeah. Commissioner Sardinas?
Oh, I should have asked this during question time, but I'll turn it into more of a comment. Is there, it's.
It can be a question too. It's a discussion. It can be anything.
This is a discussion. Okay. I guess I'm just wondering how like other cities are using it, and since the goal is to get people like moving too, is there a way, or has this been suggested in the past? Apologies for not knowing this, but to like maybe subsidize some of the classes for people who can't afford. I know that we have like the Albany resident rate, and they are super affordable, but just having some way to provide more scholarships or something for people who want to take some of the rec classes that are more physical.
I don't know if that's been floated.
Oh, that's been done a lot over the years.
Well, but not with Sugar-Sweetened Beverage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it has?
Absolutely. And
And I know it funds programs like the Move and Groove event and bicycle.
no,
We
early
zeroed out the
on,
cost on cooking classes or something?
yeah, cooking
Oh, it did?
classes and,
Okay.
and maybe some yoga classes at the park or
Something,
something.
something like that.
And what they noticed was it didn't change the enrollment at all. The same people came, so we were just giving something free to people who were willing to pay for it anyway, So,
Well, that's great information to have.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think it would be, I'd love to hear too, like other, what other cities are doing if there's, I think these are great, and I like the
Yeah.
idea of those priorities that you just mentioned, but I think it would be helpful, or I can also do my own research for next time a little bit more.
Google is your friend, okay. Actually, it is not. Don't quote me on that. All right. I don't think we have anything new to add to the list, right?
I don't, maybe somebody else does.
No, I thought about it. All right. No, I think excellent job. These are good. I think we've given you some priorities, and remove that rec sport one in your equipment. Just,
Okay.
I mean, I would say the same for pickleball, but yeah, but it's okay.
You don't want to say that out loud, you better take it back.
I'm doing it. I mean, I do have to worry the softball players have bats. That's different. But I can handle a paddle. All right, that's it. Any other? Nothing. Okay, so now we move to the new part. We don't have subcommittees right now, so update. So announcements. Now it's time. We've moved the announcements to the tail end, presumably for efficiency, for people waiting, or doesn't matter. All right, neither here nor there.
And then,
Announcements?
I do have an announcement if no one else does. 1 second.
And I've got an announcement coming up April 20th. Yes, that is Easter Sunday. It's the Spring on Solano event, music and entertainment and vendors and special offers on Solano Avenue. Free, noon to 5.
and I see there's nothing on the agenda, there's no item for future agenda items, so is that an omission, or is that, we're not going to discuss future meetings now, or?
Maybe that was just an oversight.
Future agenda items actually comes under announcements, staff and commissioner announcements and requests for future
Okay.
agenda items.
Okay, so that's all
It's
bundled
all,
in there.
they lumped it all into one now.
Okay, there we
That
go.
item has been doged. Okay.
Okay. Jeez.
So that's going to come now with
Yeah, me too.
other announcements.
All right. So I've had my announcement. Any other announcements? Jamira?
Why didn't it pop up? Let me try that again. 1
Oh,
second.
we could see it online.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, we could. Now it's gone.
Let's try it again.
While you're getting that ready, one question I had was for future agenda item.
There we go.
We had talked about reorganizing the, like our specific agendas so that tree removals came very early. Did you get any, did you ask about
Yeah,
that?
I did ask, and we can do that.
You can do that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Oh, okay. My announcement is Movie in the Park, Saturday, May 10th. They will be showing Mamma Mia. It starts around 8 o'clock, or when it starts to get dark. It usually goes to 10:30. Please bring your family, picnic, a blanket, sleeping bag, chairs, whatever you want. Come out, enjoy, have fun, and that was the only announcement. In case you want to find other events and things like this is on the calendar on our new website that
Yeah.
we now have. It is now located at www.albanyca.gov, no longer .org. So for other interesting information, please go onto the website and look at the calendar.
That had to be a heavy lift. Everybody's involved in that, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Still
And
in.
then,
yeah.
Any other future agenda suggestions?
no, but there's an announcement, but Jeff already left. I guess he's stepping down from the city, I heard. Is it?
Yes, he is retiring. I don't know the exact date, but I hope it's after the street tree management plan.
So
You're
Jeff
not sure it's
Bardo-
not because of the street? Yeah.
It might be.
So the city's put out for a new city, what's his title?
Redevelopment Director.
Development Director.
Community Development Director. So if anybody has any suggestions or wants to apply, look on the city website.
Very interesting. All right.
Just for
Yeah.
future agenda items, I do have another. So the dog park opening that was canceled for the rain, we're targeting 2 dates, so it'll come out later. We're looking at April 30th and then May 14th, depending.
And the dog park's open. This is just a celebration.
It's just a
Yeah, okay, ceremony. Okay, very good, very good. Yeah.
It's getting a lot of uses.
Oh, I know, no. And it was fun. The other day, one of the residents that we interviewed on the street stopped me on my blue glove walk and said, "Hey, your dog park's open. All those things happen."
Wow, years later, they recognized.
Sorry.
And then somebody had mentioned that they thought the park was closed, even though it was supposed to be open, but, and then I asked the city about that, because there was people on social media chattering about it, and the feedback I got was that the city shuts down the fields whenever there's rain or something, but I don't know, is that policy, is like, how many days is that usually done, or like for, since?
So it's not, it's more of an art than a science in terms of, you walk around and is it super muddy and it's really kind of that sort of, it's the same thing.
Sports fields.
The same thing that we do with sports fields. And if you want a good gauge, El Cerrito has a text when they close their fields, and you can sign up for that text, and we pretty much along the same, the same level.
Got it.
All right, thank you, everybody.
So
A little bit more? Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yes,
there's more.
future.
Yeah.
future needs. So the next meeting, there's a couple of things brewing. Well, there's the potential presentation on electric bikes along.
Oh, right.
Speeds along
Excellent.
the Greenway.
Yeah.
That's a potential. The maintenance, park maintenance update would be another one. And there was one other brewing, but part of it's just based on, it's a busy time for us right now.
Of course, of course. All right.
It'll be probably one of those.
Yeah, okay, very good. With that, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks.